Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Musical Prisms podcast. My name is Wayne, and once again, I'm joined by the Irish lass with so much sass she could kick anyone's ass, Miss Tara O'Reilly from Spin and Prague. How's it going, Tara?
Very good, very good. Thank you very much, Wayne. I appreciate that you recognize my power.
Yeah, it's all good. Today, we're going to be looking at Back on the Streets by Gary Moore,
Yeah,
released September 30th, 1978. Genres are hard rock, blues rock, and jazz fusion. This is Gary's first authentic solo album since Grinding Stone in the early 70s. Fantastic album cover. Love that record.
yeah.
Uh, Featured an actual top 10 hit for him, Parisian Walkway,
hmm
which is probably one of his most famous songs. And the album cover depicted leaving notorious prison Wormwood Scrubs in England.
Yeah. Notorious prison of London.
Yeah. So anyway, the lineup for this is Gary Moore on guitar, Phil Lynott of Thin Lizzy on bass, Don Airy on keyboards, John Mole on bass on the tracks that Phil's not on, Brian Downey on drums on the tracks. Simon Phillips is on.
Yeah.
Now, to people who aren't aware, when I did my episode with Scott Davis for Jeff Beck, that also featured Simon Phillips on it. Very busy man.
Oh, he's been on nearly everything when you look at it, and he's still at it. Like,
Yeah, fantastic drummer.
yeah, yeah.
So, Tara, how did you come across this record by Gary
Well,
Moore?
I mean, I'm Irish, and Gary Moore is Irish, so I would have been introduced to Gary through Thin Lizzy when he played on
Yeah,
the Roisin Dove album. And he was known for his kind of bluesy stuff, and I hadn't really ventured outside of the stuff he'd done with Tin Lizzy for a while. Then I discovered Colosseum, and I
okay.
started listening to Colosseum too. And when I saw Gary's playing abilities on Colosseum 2, I was like, hardly that is the Gary Moore that we all know for his kind of rock and bluesy stuff. I had no idea he was capable of prog or jazz fusion at all. So I was, of course, like so impressed. And then, I knew Parisian Walkways, that was such a big hit in the UK and Ireland. And after I'd heard the Coliseum 2 stuff, I saw that a lot of the Coliseum 2 guys were on Back on the Streets, and that's what prompted me
Yeah.
to go and listen to the album. And then when I saw that the two lads from Tin Lizzy were on it as well, I was delighted. Um, Weird album, Wayne. It's a weird one. I mean,
Yes.
he went into it, and it's like he was thinking, I'm just going to show how versatile I am and how I can do every genre.
Yeah, I didn't know really much about Gary Moore outside of Still Got the Blues and Parisian Walkway up until a couple of years ago, or maybe even last year. And I went and listened to a lot of his discography. He is, in my opinion, one of the most versatile guitar players I've ever heard, whether it be he's doing blues, he's doing jazz, jazz fusion, he's doing heavy metal, he's doing neoclassical shredding
Yeah,
and
yeah.
stuff.
Do it all.
He did it all. And I think you brought up a great point to this record because this actually feels like Gary Moore started this out maybe doing a jazz fusion record like for Coliseum 2, and it kind of morphed into a solo album.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. It's odd. Like, you start off with the title track, and it's this kind of classic rock little
Yeah.
firecracker of a song to open the album, and then into this ballady tune that was a Tin Lizzy song originally featured on Johnny the Fox. But yeah, the way it just kind of goes all over the place. You know what I mean? It's like a roller coaster. You don't know what to expect next. He's going into jazz fusion. He's going into blues. He's going into classic rock, hard rock. Like, he's just all over the place.
I'll even say he went into punk with Fanatical Fascists
Yeah,
on this. Like, there's such a punk energy to it. And there's a line from it I remember where he's talking about fanatical fascists with Italian mustaches. It's just so all over the place, but and even a song title like Flight of the Snow Moose.
Yeah, that was definitely a slight at Camel.
Yeah,
100%.
I was like, yep, Flight of the Snow Moose, Flight of the Snow Goose.
Yeah,
Really cool song. I love the instrumentation on here.
yeah, yeah.
Is
Uh,
just out of the world.
it was like the Coliseum 2 guys and him sat down and said, "Let's just show our chops on this."
Yeah.
And they just went for it.
Yeah, like the drumming on this, whether it be Brian Downey, who I think is a criminally underrated drummer
Absolutely, yeah.
from Thin Lizzy, but the Simon Phillips drumming on this is just insane.
Yeah. Yeah, they
Uh,
were in their kind of proggy, fusiony prime at this point, I'd say. And if you listen to that Coliseum
they
2
could get
stuff
away with
that they
that.
did, it's just insane.
Yeah, it's a great album. Like I was listening to even some of his later stuff recently, and I'm like, wow, it's amazing how many great musicians Gary Moore was always able to surround himself with as well.
Yeah. He was kind of known for a guy that would come into the studio and he would, he had a lot of trouble at the time with other musicians being on substances and relying on alcohol, and he was known as the guy that could just hold everything together and
Yeah.
keep the spirits high and keep the peace kind of. So I'd say he had a very good reputation in the industry and anyone would work with him.
Yeah, I heard not sure if it's true or not, but I heard that's why he left Thin Lizzy. He
Yeah,
just was tired of
yeah. Phil was in a very bad place at the time.
yeah. And yeah, so this album, I it's one of those where I like Parisian Walkway is such a beautiful song,
Hmm.
but it has such a darkness undertone to it
Yeah,
the whole time listening to it. And I'll always say I love Gary's voice. I always love Phil's voice. Like those are. I think Gary also doesn't get enough credit for actually how good of a singer he is.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I know he wasn't really a fan of singing too much, but when he did it, he was great. He was brilliant. I wish he did it more, actually.
Yeah, he's a felt like kind of a true front man.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, yeah. He was brilliant on stage. Great stage presence.
Yeah, I know we were talking briefly off camera about how when we're filming this, this is actually the Sunday after Gary Moore's birthday.
Yeah, yeah. We
And
we planned that right, didn't we?
yeah, we did. There's just something like you said, Irish. My grandma's side of the family, they come from Ireland, right on the Irish Northern Irish border.
Yeah,
So yeah, hearing a lot of especially you think about Irish guitar players, you got Gary Moore, you got Rory Gallagher, who are probably two of the best
yeah,
guitar players. And but let's get a little bit more into this. Like I remember a few weeks back listening to this, really delving into this, and I think I love the classical of Flight of the Snow Moose, that kind of mandolin opening.
I think it's hilarious the way you go from fanatical fascists, this mad song, like you said, kind of punk song, and then it just starts off into Flight of the Snow Moose, this lovely mandolin, and everything is fine now, guys.
Yes. Oh man, like it's one of those records where, especially that song, like it starts off so beautiful, melodic, and it just goes into this insane craziness
Yeah, yeah. It's
throughout.
awesome, and it's like I said, it's the Coliseum 2 guys just sat down and said, "Let's show our chops on this tune." He had been with Coliseum 2 a good few years at this point.
Yeah.
And, the stuff that they were producing together was insane, crazy good stuff. Like, you just you just don't come across that kind of musicianship very often. So to have
No.
him on his solo album, he was a lucky man, like to have them all working on it with him. And like you said, it's like it was a Coliseum 2 album that morphed into a solo album. And then bringing in the Tin Lizzy guys on top of that, like, it's just insane. It's nuts.
It is. It does give it that kind of schizophrenic feel
Yeah,
to
yeah,
it. Is what does your album want to be? And I've always thought of that about albums like Pink Floyd's Piper at the Gates of Dawn is a
yeah,
prime example of that. Is kind of what album do you want to be? Do you want to be pop? Do you want to be experimental? And
yeah. I always say song for Donna. It's like his Stevie Wonder moment, you know?
yes, it's a great song. It's a great ballad.
Yeah. Yeah, like and then it goes from that into what would you rather be or a wasp?
Yeah,
Back into this crazy instrumentation again, you know? Yeah, totally bipolar.
yeah, like, but yeah, like I love Don Airey's keys on
Yeah,
this whole album. I think it really ties it together
yeah.
more so than. Well, I kind of think he was the perfect keyboardist for this album because anybody else, like if you would have got like a kind of Rick Wakeman type or Keith Emerson type, or somebody who's a little bit less in the mix, even, he just fits right in that middle section where it's not too flashy, but it's also too not noticeable
Mhm.
for it.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, he's great at kind of he's like a chameleon, you know.
Yes.
He can just kind of adapt to whatever is going on and he just slots right in perfectly. Yeah, you're right. Absolutely.
Yeah, because I'm kind of thinking about like, especially with like Simon Phillips going insane on those drums
Yeah.
at times. It's like if you had too flashy of a keyboard player on top of that, it could really mess with your ears. But I just like where it comes in.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I suppose when you're going from working with John Heisman, you just kind
Yeah.
of learn to sit on the back burner, like, okay.
Yes. Like I think this really helped Gary is I think it, especially with Parisian Walkway, it opened up a lot more opportunities for him.
Yeah, yeah, and it absolutely showed people who he is. You know, it was like an
Yeah.
introduction to the world. This is Gary Moore because he was kind of in the shadows for a long time. And yeah, when Parisian Walkways was in the charts, people were like, "Oh, who is this guy? You know, who is Gary Moore?" And then they'd look into him and see, "Oh my God, he's the guy that played with Tin Lizzy, or he's the guy that did this, that, and the other." And people finally started to recognize him for the incredible guitarist that he is.
Yeah, that's for me, like, when you're talking about Mount Rushmore of, like, underrated guitar players, he's gotta be on there.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm friends with his son Jack on Facebook, and he's always trying to push how great his dad was because he still is totally underrated. You know, no matter what people say and everything he did, people still don't recognize him for what he could do. Even in Ireland, you know, it's either Rory Gallagher or Thin Lizzy. People don't, they don't add Gary into the conversation. And I can see now his son is petitioning to try and get a statue of him
Okay.
put up in, I think, Belfast, which is fantastic. You know, I rightly so. I think he totally deserves it. But again, I don't think people are going to go for it because he's so underrated.
Yeah, like, was just thinking there, like, Gary Moore, I guess the best way to describe him is a musician's musician.
Yeah, yeah,
Like, to musicians, they understand his greatness.
yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, that's a good point actually. Um, yeah, that's just opened up my mind now. I'm like, oh, okay, that's a really good point. Yeah, I think we're kind of biased as people who listen to prog as well because we recognize that technical ability so well. But outside of us, people just don't get it, do they?
No, and when you think about it, like Gary Moore, like even look at a song like Still Got the Blues and how everyone's like, that sounds so simple to play. But then once you actually break it down and how intricate that song is,
Yeah,
it's insane.
I know. Yeah, yeah. Even to sit down and watch him during a live performance, the stuff he was
Yeah.
doing was just insane, criminal, like.
Yeah.
And people were like, "Oh, sure, he's just another blues guitarist. Like we have, they're a dime a dozen, those lads." And his abilities were just unrecognized, and still are.
Yeah, like he's one of those guys I was just listening to, and I'll even say, like, to me, even Jeff Beck, I don't think even gets enough recognition for how good
Yeah,
he was. Like, for his jazz fusion, like, there's very few guitar players that I can listen to and be like, that guy can virtually play anything.
yeah, yeah,
And I remember seeing an interview recently where Alice Cooper said Jeff Beck's the greatest guitar player
mm,
because he said he watched him drop a guitar through his hands and he was playing it at the same time. And he's like, that's perfect triplets.
yeah, yeah,
And everyone just thought, oh, it's just he's just doing whatever. But it's like, no, it's like perfect.
yeah, yeah. But that's because we're nerds, Wayne.
Yeah, that's very much it. This like I was listening to stuff like even Song for Donna, great ballad.
Yeah,
Like I really think this started Phil and Gary working a lot more together because I know on Phil's solo stuff, Gary helped him out on Gary's solo stuff. They were kind of like mutual
yeah,
working together.
yeah. They had a chemistry when it came to writing music.
Yeah.
And the stuff they produced was just awesome, really, really cool. I think Gary kind of brought Phil up to another level
Yeah.
of this musical technique. You can see it especially on Black Rose by Thin Lizzy. Like the stuff that was going on that album is awesome. And like I said, Gary was the one in the studio holding everything together and making sure that it was this good. So it
Yeah.
was great when they were introduced to each other. It was just dynamite.
Yeah, and like that that I always pronounce Rosendub. I'm not sure how it's pronounced in Ireland.
Roisin.
Rosine. Okay, and I always just call it Black Rose
Yeah,
because
yeah,
it's like, yeah. But you can see from then on, like them working together, like just the progress, and it really noticed once Gary left that the quality then went back
yeah, yeah. Exactly.
down.
That writing in instrumentally was, it just came back down to that level, and it's such a pity. It really is.
Yeah.
And I mean, like the albums were still great. Don't get me wrong. I love everything Thin Lizzy produced. But I just, when Gary was there, it was just on another level. He was
Yes.
fantastic.
Oh man, like even stuff like Hurricane on this album, you
Yeah,
feel like you're in a literal hurricane
yeah,
of sound. Like it's like, where is this going? Where is this coming from?
yeah.
Uh, it feels like everyone on this album got a place to shine.
Absolutely. And that just goes to show what kind of a person he was. He
Yeah.
was very much the opposite of egotistical, and he wanted everyone to have a say and everyone to have their moment, which is fantastic. And it totally, like, sometimes that won't work out for a band.
Yeah.
But Gary, whatever way, I'd say he was just a real kind of diplomatic guy. And it worked out so well on this album. So well.
It did like even looking like the lyrics, like Fanatical Fascist was written by Phil Lynott.
Yeah.
And I can see it. Yeah, that would have never made it to a Thin Lizzy album at
No.
all. and it's just such a fun song. I keep going back to that song because it's like so out there. It's kind of like the redheaded stepchild of the album.
Yeah, yeah. Wayne, you're funny. Um, yeah, my own personal taste. I love the really fusiony stuff on this. I love the whole
Yeah.
fanatical fascist is crazy, but I love that they went into it and were like, let's just play all over these tunes and go
Yep.
head for leather with the fusion stuff. I love it. Absolutely adore that stuff.
Yeah, like the wordplay on a lot of these titles too, like Flight of the Snow Moose. Would you rather be or a wasp? It's like that's such a weird title.
Yeah, it is. It
Yeah,
is.
like but
Um,
his soloing on here.
yeah, Jesus. He really went into this and was like, okay, so this is my first like proper solo album. I am gonna show people what I'm made of.
Yeah. And I listened to this and one album of his I don't think gets enough recognition for how really damn good it was Victims of the Future.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. All I think all of his work, his solo work
Yeah.
especially, was just kind of brushed off completely. You know, people just don't listen to it.
Yeah, like After the War was a great record. Wild Frontiers
Yeah,
is another one. Like when they talk about like instrumental rock guitar players, like I know a lot bring up like Vi, Satriani, but Gary Moore's got to be brought up into that.
absolutely. And that's, I hate that he's never included in the conversation when it comes to this stuff. Like, people have their go to guitar players, and it's always the same guys. And it's
Yeah.
like, hang on a second now, because Gary Moore was right up there with all of those lads. But like I said, people don't listen to his solo work, so they don't really know, do they?
No, and it's a that's one thing I'm hoping with this podcast is to kind of bring some more light to some of these guys and some of the lesser known people on these albums because they are so integral
Yeah, yeah,
to the album. Like I know I was talking to Scott Davis about Heaven and Hell by Black Sabbath, like
yeah,
how instrumental Dio was to that, but also Bill Ward
yeah,
on
yeah,
drums.
yeah,
Like
exactly.
he's kind of like the forgotten guy that band.
Yeah. Yeah, I suppose there's always one, isn't there? There's always one that just kind of stays in the shadows, and
Kind
you
of the
have to
Ringo.
really dig deep to get right into it. Like,
Yeah, it must be a drummer thing. It's like the Ringo
yeah,
of the
well,
band.
I don't know. I mean, being in a relationship with Cody Brockway of all people, there's no way he's gonna stay in the background. Like, you know.
No.
Speaking of, here he is.
Hello.
Uh,
How you
hello.
doing? There you go.
Oh, not bad. Talking about the greatness of Gary Moore.
Awesome. You guys continue talking.
Yeah, like I was listening to oh, who was it? Andy Edwards talk about Simon Phillips.
Yeah.
And that's how I found out about Simon Phillips.
Okay.
A
Yeah.
guy like Andy Edwards talk about him and how much reverence he has for him
Yeah. Yeah.
as a
I
drummer.
I didn't realize who he was until I can't remember what I was listening to, and it wasn't long ago that I kind of discovered who Simon Phillips really is. Um, I can't remember for the life of me what it was, but it was something he played on anyway, and I was looking into the personnel on it, and I went into his Wikipedia page, and when I saw the amount of albums he was on, I was like, oh my gosh.
Yes. It's kind of like who was it? Chris Slade from like the 80s. Like
Yeah,
how
yeah.
many bands he's played with, and it's
Oh
like
my good God,
Jesus.
like, yeah, Jesus. So yeah, Simon Phillips, like, I can't get over the amount of stuff he's done. It's insane. And he's incredibly talented. He's not derivative either. You
Nope.
know, he's like Don Airey. He's got that chameleon ability where he can just slot into whatever you put him into.
Yep. And that's always a great thing to be as a musician, just
Yeah.
being able to slot wherever you need to be and play what they want. But yeah, Gary's stuff, like some of his solos throughout his entire career, I'm like listening to him like, oh, what was it? There was one, oh, I wish I could remember the name of it off by heart. But as soon as he started shredding, I'm like getting like, wait a minute, this is 80. He's virtually doing Megadeth.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Like totally you know, you can see he was an inspiration for an awful lot of people.
Yeah.
So like despite how criminally underrated he is, he was definitely being watched by certain people. And another solo that blows my mind is the one on the title track from Roshi and Dove,
Yeah.
where him and I think it's him and Scott go into that dual solo where it sounds like a traditional Irish dance
Yeah.
on guitar. Like you just what?
Yeah. And I think that was also his great thing, especially on that record, is how he was able to work so well with Scott
Yeah,
on
yeah,
that.
absolutely.
And but yeah, like definitely if you're watching this, check out Gary Moore's solo work. It is mind blowing how good he is.
Yeah, yeah. I really hope this gets out to a good few people now because I'm always saying I'd love for Gary to start getting that recognition someday, you know?
He definitely deserves it because I remember last year going through his discography and I'm like, wow. Like, sure, I think what also happened is there's a lot of people in our circle that hate the 80s.
Yeah, yeah.
And that kind of, I think, plays a little bit into it, but it's kind of one of those you have to listen to some of this stuff because it is just, even for the 80s, it's just mind blowing how,
Absolutely, yeah, yeah. He just, he didn't rely on anything else other than his skill.
yeah.
Like and that's something that happened in the 80s. People started to rely on these electronic effects and stuff like that, whereas Gary not.
I loved uh, Jeff Beck for
Yeah.
the one reason all he walked into was, and I think it was John Bon Jovi talked about this, where he played on one of his, I think it was Blaze of Glory or whatever, and he said all Jeff Beck did was just get shipped to him a factory amp, a guitar, and I think all he walked into was just a wah wah pedal, and that was it.
Crazy. My God. Unreal.
Yeah, and anyone who's worked with him would say the same thing. Probably the best section guy I've ever played with.
Yeah, yeah. Absolutely. Good God.
Yeah. Well, anyway, Tara, for me, this is definitely listening to this. I think this is a masterpiece of an album.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%.
People have to listen to this record. If you're a fan of fusion, you'll love it. If you're a fan of Thin Lizzy, you'll like it. If you're a fan of kind of what I dare say interesting music, where you're never quite sure where it's going, music that's all over the place, kind of like I think this is one part that's very smart about this is it kind of feels like those old 60s debut albums where you'd get a little bit of everything.
Yeah, yeah, it does actually.
And it's kind of a tried and tested method for a lot of bands.
Yeah.
Because I find if you pigeonhole yourself into one genre right off the bat, you just get pigeonholed there and you can never leave.
That's it. It's like being typecasted in the acting world, you know? It's like, oh, that's what you do now, so you stay there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a fantastic album. Definitely a masterpiece. Parisian Walkway is the hit off of here, but I definitely say go listen to the rest of this because there is stuff there that'll absolutely blow your mind.
Yeah.
But anyway, once again, it's nice having you on, Tara. What's coming up on Spinning Proc?
So right now I am still kind of doing, I've been doing like fusion in Prague and science
Yeah.
fiction in Prague and stuff. So I'm gonna go back into that now. My last video was like me freaking out about how amazing the new IQ album is.
I watched that. A lot of people seem to are really liking that album.
Yeah, it's
A lot more so than maybe the Steven Wilson.
yeah, and I said the same thing. It was just like all out Prague, and it was just adrenaline everywhere, goosebumps the whole way through. Incredible masterpiece. But yeah, that was my last video. I was freaking out over that, but now I'm gonna go back into not freaking out and actually having conversations.
That might actually be a good idea for a video. All those 70s freakout albums.
Yeah.
60s, 70s freakout albums that people,
It for you.
yeah, because for me on my channel, I thought about doing like I mentioned off camera, a new concept of just reviewing albums. This one's going to be called Five is Alive, where it's albums where the year ends in five, and I just review them. It could be pop, punk, blues, new wave, classical, jazz. It could be whatever. If the album cover looks cool, I'll definitely check it out. The first one I'm thinking about doing is the 1975 release by the sensational Alex Harvey Band.
Yeah, it's brilliant. I can't wait for that.
Yeah, it's one of those where I'm like, you know what? Because I got a comment the other day on my channel. They're like, you said you'd check out more from the Alex Harvey Band doing reactions, and I'm like, I'm kind of trying to steer away from that for a little bit.
Yeah.
Just kind of get in
Yeah,
emergent.
I loved your reaction to Faith Healer.
Yeah.
Your face, you were like,
What is this? This looks different. It kind of feels like the guy looks like the vaudevillian Bon Scott.
oh, it was so funny. So I'd say that's why people are like, please do it again.
Yeah, I'm probably gonna do a album review instead and just like go through it because I definitely want to immerse myself in different albums.
Yeah.
And that's the one problem I find with reactions is it's kind of one and done.
Yeah, yeah.
But with this, I can.
That's a good idea. That's going to be awesome, actually.
Yeah, it's definitely gonna look at it. I thought about because I did hear people talk about the Epic by Kazemi Washington, I believe it is.
Washington, oh Wayne, that's one
But
of the best albums I've ever heard in my life. It's
the
incredible.
only downside that I have even attempting it is it's about 3 hours.
Yeah, it's a massive concept album, but oh Wayne, it's so worth it. It's so good.
That might be my final video of the year.
Okay, I look forward to that. I'm going to be on you now. I'm going to be like, come on now, you said you'd do it.
Yes, because even Joe's Garage for me, Frank Zappa, that's about 2 hours.
Yeah.
And that's kind of pushing it for me it's more of a time factor.
Yeah, I can see, I can see where you're coming from.
But it probably will be my final video since that's like the big epic end off with a bang.
Fantastic. I can't wait.
Yeah, the great thing about it is that with it being like ending in 5, then next year its album's ending in 6, 7.
Yeah.
And all that. So and there's so many albums that I can never listen to them all this year. So then when the 5s hit again, go right back to a whole new batch.
Good for you. Great idea.
Yeah. One of the great things about working at my job where you can just throw your mind in neutral.
Yeah.
Think about all these great ideas.
Awesome.
But anyway, once again, thank you for coming on, Tara.
Thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure.
Always a pleasure. Definitely, if you can, check out Tara's channel, Spin in Prague, on YouTube. Definitely worth a subscription. And also check her out on Prague Radio with her and Cody Brockway. They're the Prague couple. Kevin Carmody from over there has their every week. Is it Wednesday?
Every Thursday at 12 noon Eastern time.
yes, definitely check it out. Great stuff over there. But anyway, once again, thank you guys so much for watching. It really does mean a lot. Uh, like I said, I love having these guests on and just talking
Yeah,
music. It's great to just kind of like feels like you're at the pub.
it does, doesn't it? All we're missing now is a big pint.
Yeah, big pint. I need to get a big bottle of Guinness or something and have it right there. But anyway, thank you, Tara. This is me here signing out. Peace.